Thank you everybody for coming. We're really excited for this alumni session. It's the first of our new sourcing season here at One Mind, and we have some incredible founders who have gone through the program who are going to tell you a little bit about it, the value that they got from it, and provide some advice on what you can do, to participate, and if you do participate, to get the most from it. So I'm just going to give a quick overview on One Mind and the One Mind Accelerator. If you're not familiar with One Mind, it's our 30th anniversary this year. The group has been around since 1994. And it started when Brandon Staglin, who was our president for a long time, was diagnosed with schizophrenia in his early 20s when he was in college. And his parents immediately set about looking for the best possible solution for their son. And they ended up creating this nonprofit, One Mind, to help him recover, but to make sure that everybody who, ends up with a diagnosis like that gets the treatment and the help that they need. And so over the next 3 decades, One Mind proceeded to raise a lot of money, support a lot of scientific research, and build the mental health ecosystem. And this is at a time when, in the 90s, it wasn't like today when everybody was talking about mental health. They were really ahead of the curve there. And a couple of years ago, we realized that, funding all this scientific research was super important, very impactful, but it wasn't getting solutions into the hands of the people that needed it quickly enough. And so that is about the time that I started talking with the One Mind team back when I was at Techstars about coming over to build an accelerator specifically for mental health companies so that we could take some of these companies where we were supporting their scientific research or otherwise across the mental health space and helping them to very quickly scale, grow their businesses, and most importantly, get it into the hands of people that needed it. So that was the sort of genesis of the Accelerator program. We've now done 2 cohorts, 21 companies that we've worked with. Those companies have raised over $200 million at this point. Quite a bit of that is represented in the 4 founders on this call. And they have reached over 500,000 patient lives in that period of time as well. So the impact of these companies in the program has been really, really profound in the first 2 years. And we're really happy with how it's come together. And it's really a testament to, the groundwork that was laid at One Mind for decades, before this program existed. I'll tell you a little bit about the program before we jump into the panel with the alumni. And I'm actually just going to share a screen here so that you can get a better sense of programming. So these are kind of the core pillars of the One Mind Accelerator program. So high level, it's a 9-week program. It blends cohort-based and ultra-customized driven programming to help founders fast-track their company building. So what does that mean? Well, first with the 9 weeks, it's going to run from mid-February to the end of April in 2025. And we do a handful of things really, really well. The first is mentoring and networking. So with every company, as soon as we select them, we get to work with them on creating a wish list of the few dozen, 30 or so mentors and advisors that would be absolute game changers for their company. So we start out by doing that, and then we use our network to get in touch with those people and make those connections for folks. The next piece is, of course, fundraising. And not every company needs fundraising when they come through the accelerator. Many had already raised funding when they came in, and so we don't focus as much on it for them. But for the companies that need it, we have an amazing network of both mental health focused investors, healthcare focused investors who really want to be more invested in mental health, and then general investors as well. And our companies have received backing from some of the best investors out there: A16Z, Coastal Ventures, Teal Capital, Y Combinator, Techstars, you name it. This group is raised from some incredible folks to help them on their company building journey. And then third, which is really, I think, the heart of what we offer here and that makes us so different than a typical accelerator, is that we do business development efforts very specific to the mental health landscape. So that's working with the insurance companies, working with the hospital systems, working with large employers, really helping you, one, develop a go-to-market strategy, but then two, actually connecting with the decision makers at those places which, you know, without those direct relationships can take a long time, be very complicated. And so we make that much faster, much easier, and you're connecting with people who want to help you. You know, they want to help you scale your business. The next thing is founder development. We do a lot of stuff. We do leadership coaching. We do communications workshops. We do one-on-one mentorship sessions. And we also do a lot of like team building and like mental health and wellness work too. So last year we did a breath work session that ended with an ice bath. Not a lot of accelerators out there giving ice baths to their founders, but it was a really great morning and actually had some really great lessons in it around just doing hard things and the benefits that come from that, which as a founder you can, you know, probably totally relate to. And then the last piece is just the community. And I'm hoping that our founders on the call will touch on this, but we invest a lot into making sure that the founders actually get close to one another and build real relationships. We've been super fortunate that in the first 2 years, the founders have all gotten really close within their cohorts, and now we're even seeing it happen across cohorts. And those relationships can be super meaningful, whether it's, you know, just friendship and support, interest to investors, interest to customers, resources for legal, financial, marketing. You know, we've seen all that stuff happen. We've seen founders raise significant amounts of money from introductions that came through other people in the cohort, which some of the folks on the panel can actually talk about. And that's really the crux of it. So we think we built something really special here. The founders will get a chance to touch on all of that. And so I'm very excited to now have them introduce themselves. First, I'll just introduce the One Mind folks who are on the call. So we have Pushkar Joshi, who's our Chief Science and Innovation Officer. He absolutely, we could not do this program without him. He's been an incredible help. He's a neuroscience background, and it's just been incredibly helpful, especially with the deep science companies and in finding resources for them. And then Michelle Rose, program coordinator who joined the team just a couple months ago and has already made a huge impact in terms of the operations and scale and efficiency of the team. So very grateful to have them on board. And with that, I'm going to turn it over first to Susan to do a quick introduction, and then we can just go from Susan to Phil to Supriya. Let's see if Simon's here yet.
I think Simon's here.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone, and Carmine and the whole One Mind team. Thank you so much for having all of us here. It's really an honor to be here. It's incredibly exciting to see so many founders, and also some of our mentors have joined. So I'm the co-founder along with two other co-founders of Ellipsis Health. And at Ellipsis Health, we've developed the first clinical vocal biomarker for depression and anxiety severity. And we find it on telehealth calls, on care management calls, in apps, and also with an AI agent. And just to kind of continue what I think you're going to hear nonstop from the founders, what I think for all of us at Ellipsis was so special about the One Mind Accelerator really was the community and really finding your tribe. So if you can think about any question that you might have along the journey of this incredible work we're doing to try and merge physical and mental health, there will be someone within the One Mind community that will be able to help and support. And for us, it was easily the best accelerator, best program that we've been a part of. And I believe that you're going to hear the same from the other three participants. So thank you again so much for being here. Please don't hesitate, any of you that are considering applying, to reach out to me. I'd be very happy to go into detail about all aspects of the program.
Thanks, Susan. Supriya, do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. Supriya Lakhnathy, the CEO and co-founder of Cerula Care. Cerula Care is an integrated behavioral health company focused specifically on people going through the cancer journey. We're starting with the collaborative care model and then kind of expanding into a payer channel. But I guess I'm gonna start by saying it's really hard to just pick the one or two things that are wonderful about One Mind. I was just talking to another founder earlier today and convincing him to apply as well, because I thought, like Susan said, this is hands down the best accelerator that we've been through, and it's a combination of the network and the people that the One Mind team kind of brings to us, and I think the combination of that and actually how much they tailor for each company, which I actually felt like that was a distinct differentiator from other accelerators. So there is obviously standard programming, but that's not the focus. It's truly tailored to what you need from strategy sessions that you're actually grappling with in terms of your company, to specific mentors that would be like the right mentors or advisors for you. And I think that the One Mind team just puts in a lot of time and effort to be really specific to your needs, and actually will almost help you with what your needs are as well, right? So I mean, there is also the guidance that comes along with it. And then I think the third thing that Carmine was asking was, what advice we would have for you. And I'm going to say something that's pretty trite, I guess. Apologies for that, but it really is. You'll get as much out of it as you put into it, and I think that that's the matter with anything. They will be there for you and help you as much as you actually ask for it and are truly engaged with it. And so I would just highly recommend, taking the time, and it is time. All of the accelerators are time. So taking the time that's needed to really think about, what you need, who you want to speak with, what questions you need answered along the way, what you're really grappling with as a founder, as a company, and the stage that you're at. And I'll offer the same thing as Susan. Reach out with any questions anytime.
Awesome. Phil?
Cool. Yeah, great to meet you all. I'm Phil Strangwood, CEO and co-founder of Alumni. I'm a poop scientist by training, so a little bit different than a lot of folks. And what Alumni is very focused on is trying to fix the gut, to fix the brain, specifically through the gut microbiome. And so we're sort of more on the interventional side of like novel interventions, in which we're literally trying to deliver superhero bacteria that could target the brain in interesting ways that may be therapeutic for a lot of different folks. We built a platform to do that, which basically involves us understanding which microbes could be good and developing them, as well as thinking about food as a way to target the gut as well. So sort of broad applications of the technology that we're building. We came into the accelerator with about 12 million bucks already raised through non-dilutive grant funding, mainly in partnerships. So for those in the audience that maybe already closed around or brought in pretty significant capital, we still had a ton of value out of it. With regards to sort of what the day-to-day was within the accelerator, so there was like programming, but as it was said by some of the others, like it seemed very customized. So it was like very practical of, I think the first meeting was along the lines of, tell us exactly what you want to get out of this. And then, you come with your list. And then there was also the suggestions of like, here's coaching that you could potentially use. Here's exposure to patients, which could be helpful. Here's investor introductions. So I think Pushkar set sort of a new energy level for me of, this is the hustle. We're moving fast. We're going to open up all the doors that we can because like patients really can't wait. And so while, at times that was a little intense, it was absolutely worth it. And at the end of it, I think we just built a really nice network, as well as expanded our toolkit of what we can potentially use, from data operations to, even marketing collateral that we could use for investors, partners, and you name it. With regards to sort of engagement with the rest of the cohort, there's a lot of activity of sort of like small groups as well as broad groups too, which was a lot of fun. So there were some in-person events where everybody came together and we did things like improv, which was hilarious. And I've never done it before, but it was a ton of fun. We then also had more focused teams that were trying to solve specific problems. So, sort of like mastermind classes, but for people that are on the same path as you, of trying to solve for impact specifically through mental health. And then the final thing of advice to give to potential founders, like apply. For sure. I think everybody can use what the One Mind community has built. They've been doing this for 30 years and have really thought deeply about all the different components that go into intervening for patients. Like the science, yes, some of the best scientists in the world are the advisor committee, but you have like you have Time Incels on the call right now who used to lead the NIMH for many years. You have investors that deployed some of the most capital in the world in the mental health world too. So like it's all here, and it's super hard to aggregate that as a standalone company. So yeah, my suggestion apply.
Thank you. All right, Simon.
Hey guys, so my company's Heading Health. we're an in-network interventional psychiatry company, today focused on ketamine treatments, where we have 22 insurance payer contracts. And we do that in Texas, where we have 4 clinics right now doing ketamine treatments for severe depression outpatient. And we came into the program, we'd raised about $10 million. And we were doing about $5 million in kind of run rate revenue. I joined the program for a variety of reasons. One, I really like the people, which is ultimately why most people do most things in life. But I have and it's a pretty intense program, frankly. Like, I'm a solo founder. It would be probably more digestible doing it as a kind of one of several founders. But I would say that building a healthcare company, obviously, like most companies, is super hard. And one of the kind of the hidden things in healthcare, like how you win, is you really need to convince people you're doing a good job at helping people. And One Mind is a very powerful influencer in the world of mental health care, right? They're not biased. They're not talking their own book. They don't have a quarterly P&L, right? They're not a private equity fund who so when they endorse you, it's a very strong signal to the market and their community of people, right? Which is really what it is, right? Like, they've got a lot of people who support One Mind and want it to succeed. Those people who support things are pretty influential. It will increase your chances of success. One, because they support you. Two, because they tell you what you need to do in order for them to support you more. Because you might do things that they don't quite like. And if they tell you that, then the likelihood is whoever your customer is, be it an employer or a in-network provider, in-network payer, probably think similarly. So you increase your chances of building something that people want or need and them actually believing it. And that's important. One, because that's probably where you start the company. Two, because sales cures all.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. We already have a lot of great questions coming in the chat, but I'd love if each of you could just share a quick little story about something that you got out of the program, maybe that you didn't expect to get. And I'd love for Phil to kick off with how he ended up from the Accelerator to speaking with Tim Ferriss and how all that happened.
Yeah, so that's not public yet, but that's okay. So we came into the Accelerator to, obviously just build out the network, but sort of concurrent to the non-dilutive funding that we brought in, we were looking to fundraise. And I ended up connecting with, the whole cohort, of course, but one member, Lars, knew Tim Ferriss through his past life. Lars used to run Compass, the biotech company. And so Lars knew Tim was interested in microbiome, connected us, and we hit it off, and Tim invested. And so that was a pretty, nice connection point. But beyond that one, we also, through Susan, actually, were able to also get an introduction with another great fund by the name of Able Partners, who also invested. And collectively, through sort of, either 1 degree or 2 degree separation, we brought in a little under 3 million through like the One Mind connection, on top of additional capital that we closed a few weeks ago. So, I think this is just the power of it, where when you have a bunch of people around the same table for the same purpose, and the purpose is good, there's this natural intuition to just open doors for everybody. And I have not experienced that in other groups that I'm part of, including many other accelerators. And I think it's just really unique to have such a North Star that's burning so bright that we can all focus on and help each other. So yeah, that's a Tim Ferriss story.
Thanks, Phil. The rest of you can say something that is not confidential for your story.
I put something in the chat. I just responded to Tiffany's question, so I may as well go. But she asked the same question you did, which is like, what was one way that the Accelerator really like helped solve a challenge or problem? And honestly, it was just within the first week, within one of the first few strategy sessions that we had, when we Cerula Care came to the Accelerator, we were quite new and had just launched with our first customer, which happened to be an oncology practice, but we were still thinking of ourselves as mental health for all serious illness, and we're kind of grappling with this. Should we focus into a particular area? Can we actually be broader when it comes to any and all serious illness, and kind of think about, you know, our go-to-market approach across oncology, cardiology, nephrology, and that's what we were doing actually. And after a few conversations and like a very tailored strategy session, it was very clear that we should focus, and that actually helped us tremendously. I mean, it helped us immediately with sales. It actually helped us with recruiting. It actually helped our entire team like rally around one thing that they could really believe in. Not to say that the previous mission wasn't believable, but like it just, I mean, it changed. I think it actually changed how quickly we became who we are today, which is, you know, multiple customers, many members, and helped us focus our entire clinical programming. So that was, I don't even know if Pushkar and Carmine know that was because of strategy session there, but it really helped.
Maybe I'll just jump in. I see a couple of the comments as well, and I've had some direct questions. So for us, one of the unexpected results was really understanding how to fine-tune our go-to-market. And so OneMind introduces all of the founders to the key decision makers who would actually purchase our technology. So at the end of the day, and I think, Simon, you said this, really, we're all measured on how many people where we're changing their lives. So who's actually using us? Where's the revenue coming from? And so they had a payer and a provider panel talking about the way that they would purchase technology, how they're evaluating it, what are the KPIs that they need to actually be able to expand that. And I think if all of us think about it, that's really hard to get that honest feedback. So no holes barred about what people are thinking. And so from the very first week, we had exposure to a set of buyers in the payer and provider market. Later, some of whom became our mentors, so we got to work with them ongoing, and many have gone into our actual pipeline, and soon will be actual partners of ours. And that's a very unique result, and it essentially helps us get in the hands of the people that need us much more quickly.
Simon, have you got a story?
Yeah. So we made a pivot as a company. We used to do lots of different services, nutrition, psychiatry, therapy, and ketamine treatments and TMS. And it's really, like, in theory, it's really nice for patients because they can come to one place for depression and get everything under one roof. And today we just do ketamine treatments, which I was actually, you know, if you asked me 2 years ago, I would have thought like that was kind of gross. And it was actually one of the people at OneMind, who's actually like a professor at Harvard in psychiatry, who actually gave me the confidence to pursue that strategy, because he's like, that's the way you're really helping people. So I knew that was like an option, that we could do that, but like sometimes you misread your customers. I think I misread the customers, and I'm pleased I made that decision. Right, so that was a successful pivot. And I'm obviously not a psychiatrist, especially not a particularly well-known one. And OneMind gave me the confidence. I mean, ultimately, I understood my customer better because of OneMind, because they really know the customer, and they're not like selling you anything, right? So I'm very grateful to that. I mean, I definitely gave me a lot more confidence to make what would have been a very hard decision otherwise, to sacrifice a sacred cow.
Awesome. Thank you. Some people have asked about the stages of companies. So we do pre-seed, seed, and Series A. The last cohort leaned more towards seed, and Series A was a more mature cohort, but we also love working with pre-seed companies as well. So I'd love to hear from Susan and then Supriya. Susan, Ellipsis came in as, I think, the latest stage company in our last cohort, and it'd be great to hear how the experience was for you for a company that was already, beyond that Series A stage.
Yeah, so we were Series A, we were actively deploying with 3 large payers during the Accelerator. I think one of the questions I saw is how many founders can participate. And so all 3 of us, the 3 co-founders, participated regularly, and we were able to juggle the fast pace of the work because of that. And I think each of us found incredible value because we have different areas of responsibility in the company. And so being a Series A company, it was an experience that I think, again, as I said before, really will catapult our growth. The other area that I didn't expect that I thought was really very special is One Mind has One Mind at Work, a program where they talk also about how you're bringing through everything that we're all working on also to our teams and to our employees. And so we found that it actually was information that we were able to go back to our team and really strengthen also the community that we had inside of our own company. So there were all these different benefits that happened. And I would really encourage any company from the pre-seed all the way to the A to consider applying. I think we've all said it's impossible for us to adequately find the words to describe everything that happened. And I love that Phil said this isn't public yet. I think all of us have a non-public connection that was really magical that happened because of the introductions of One Mind. So, again, anything we can do to help encourage you to be part of this community, we all want to do. And I saw in the notes people saying how fun it is and that all of us are working on really important problems. And I agree with all of that. I also think it's very, very hard to figure out how mental health continues to grow faster and how we really affect the change that we all want to see. And so having this special place to be able to learn and to share stories and to grow together is just something that you can't replace. So really very special.
Thanks, Susan. And then Supriya, if you want to weigh in from the pre-seed.
Yeah, so I was I think I was in the last cohort, probably the earliest company that joined. We had just raised a bit over $1 million. I'm gonna say like 1.3 or 4 million when we started there, and wrapped up the round at 1.8. But it was, and by the way, part of the raise that occurred was we already had investors that were kind of interested, but we had our first institutional that came in partly because of One Mind. Someone that is a partner there is on the board of One Mind, and so that connection helps tremendously in getting that raise done. I thought it was exceptionally valuable to be on the earlier side. I was constantly learning from everyone that had already, made some of the same mistakes and or had done some of the same pivots. And I still do, by the way. Like I'm still often emailing and texting people that are in, I would say, like more similar healthcare services companies to mine. And that's actually one of the other things that I thought was great about One Mind. There's a few companies that are all similar is what I'll say. So you actually can learn from each other, right? So there's some that are, more like Phil's company that are more like science forward is what I'll call it. And more on the research side. And then there's stuff like us that's more healthcare services. And then Susan and Ellipsis are more like AI, I would say, in healthcare. So you'll have like your groups that you can actually learn from. And I found that to be really helpful as the earliest company there.
Amazing. So there's a great question in the chat about how does the Accelerator support the personal growth, personal development, community building of the founders? Yeah, would love to get some thoughts on that one. Feel free to just jump in.
Yeah, it can happen quick. So, as a founder, particularly early stage, sometimes it's hard to invest in yourself. And there were a variety of things that were available to us throughout this, where like One Mind basically invested in us. So JD Scram is a speaking coach, and so I never even thought about having like a storytelling coach. And so it was really neat to like work with somebody who's a professional at that, has worked with some of the best people in the business to like figure out how to tell your story. And, even things like how to pace yourself in speaking, how to use pauses effectively. like those are things I was never trained on, certainly not in my PhD program, but it was neat to be able to have that. Another one sort of personally too is like calibration a little bit of what can give you energy. And I think everybody can appreciate, running a startup is really hard and grueling. And sometimes you sort of forget why you're doing it. And being able to directly interface with like patient groups. They have a patient council of folks who actually are suffering from many of the diseases we want to potentially solve, and they'll talk to you. During the events and the panels, we had patients come and like sit right next to us and talk about their experiences. And as you navigate the silliness of venture capital and the complexities of reimbursement and all the misery that exists to actually do something, it's really nice to just get reminded why. And I was reminded why constantly throughout this application, on top of being spoiled in a number of different ways.
I might just jump in. One of the wonderful aspects of the program also is meeting with founders that are Series B and beyond. And that's something that has it's a regular occurrence. And so it's kind of a very private one-on-one with the cohort and one particular founder who's been very successful with a mental health company that would, as I thought, Supriya, you said so well, crosses all of our spectrums. And so learning from their experiences actually ends up really affecting the development, I think, of the individual listening, because you're able to hear what worked for them, what helped. It helps you to really take an introspective look at what you're doing. And then secondly, I'd say that the feedback loop between OneMind and each company is very important. And so you get feedback in real time from what mentors have thought, what investors have thought, what purchasers in our partnerships would speak. And so all of that really helps the overall development, I think, of each person.
Carmine, we have a couple of questions about the application process, including what are the metrics that we look for and what are the specifics of the application process. Let's maybe tackle that one.
Yeah, for sure. So with the application process, we're going to open applications on September 9th this year, and they will be open through the end of October. Our goal is to select the entire class by Thanksgiving. And as soon as you're selected, we begin the onboarding process and tailoring the program to you and what your company needs. So we're going to do this a little bit faster this year so that we have more time to do that. Then the program will run February to April. But once you submit your application, we'll review it pretty much immediately. And we will be conducting interviews by mid to end October, early November. And the way it works is we have an investment committee made up of some very experienced VCs who understand the mental health space very well. And you will do an initial interview with them and myself and Pushkar. And then from there, assuming that you go through that round of interviews, sometimes there's a second round if there are additional questions, and sometimes we bring in different subject matter experts depending on the nature of the company to evaluate, say, the science behind it or the efficacy of the treatment that you're proposing, that sort of thing. But typically it's 1 to 2 interviews with some subject matter expert review, and then we let you know what the decision is. In terms of traction that we look for, it really just depends. It's so different for a deep science biotech company versus a digital health services company. But roughly speaking, for more of a digital health services type solution or telehealth solution, things of that nature, we're looking for a company that's probably raised a pre-seed round, definitely has a full-time team. They are probably in the market actively selling, although we have taken pre-revenue companies and will continue to do so on a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, they're fully committed to the business that they're in. And of course, we're looking for traditional sort of VC metrics, like, can this be a really big market? Is this a business that on its unit economics could actually scale and be profitable? We do look at things like that. But of course, as a nonprofit, the North Star for us is this going to impact the lives of people living with mental illness? That's always the number one thing. We think if it's a great business, it has the ability to do that, sustainably and to reach more people. So Pushkar, maybe you want to talk about on the deep science side, what we look for? You're muted.
Thanks, Carmine. I think our main metrics on the deep science side is, what does your core IP look like? What does the core innovation look like? is this really incremental, or is this going to create a step change? And again, what's different, right? Like differentiation is a key component of this, right? How different is your solution from the current state of the art? Not just better. In terms of the deep science, again, it's like how defensible is your IP? What are the moats around your business? The founders, do you have the relevant domain expertise within your company, or at least in your advisory network? And just overall credibility to be undertaking something that is that technical. So that's what we look on the deep science side.
It's fantastic.
There are some questions about, do we have advisors in hospital systems, etc. I think this would be a good time to sort of give everybody a sense of the programming infrastructure that has been built and that we are building as we look to the future.
Yep, for sure. So we've launched a number of really important initiatives in the last few months that are going to take the value of the accelerator to a whole different level. And so some of those things are these advisory councils that we've built across a few different function areas. The first one is a lived experience council comprised of people living with various forms of serious mental illness and other mental health conditions that you can meet with in order to get insight into your product and how it might actually work for somebody who is going through the condition that you're trying to treat. So that's been super valuable for the companies that met with it. The next one that we launched was the Payer Council. So we have a Payer Advisory Council with Optum, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Horizon New Jersey, Aetna, Headway, and a couple of other folks who are in the space formerly from Verily, and another person who was at Optum. And this group meets with us and advises us on how startups should be working with the payers. And they meet with the OneMind Accelerator companies and provide them feedback, make introductions, and generally just help us to make sure that our companies are able to work with payers in the right way. We're now doing that with hospital systems too. We've already got Kaiser, Mass General Hospital, and Acadia, with more coming on for the Provider Council. And then the next one that we're going to launch is a Biopharma Industry Council, and Pushkar's already found some great people for that one too. Maybe you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. So we'll roughly have, I think, 8 to 10 members, and they will be split between 4 founders who've had, the biopharma clinical device space, who've had very successful exits, and then 4 of the major biopharma corporations in neuropsychiatry, including J&J, Otsuka, Bristol Myers Squibb, and a few others. On the founder side, we have had Amit Etkin, who is on our scientific advisory board and the CEO of Alter Neuroscience, which just IPO'd this year. He's on it. Katya Malevskaya, who's a great friend of OneMind, co-founder of Compass Pathways, the psilocybin therapy company. She's agreed to be a part of it. We'll most likely get Husseini Manji. I'm just having a final meeting with him next week. He's one of the architects of commercialization of Spravato, the esketamine. So it's going to be a really robust advisory group in terms of how do you get contracts with these big biopharma companies? What are the trends? What are the insights and so forth? So we're really excited to be building this whole infrastructure. It's going to really give a very asymmetric, I guess, advantage to the companies that are going to be a part of this accelerator. Right.
Totally. So that's the infrastructure. We also launched the Alumni program, which is a really robust structure for quarterly meetings, office hours, systemizing the way that we make introductions for founders, well beyond the program. I still speak to most of the companies from the first cohort on a regular basis, make introductions, support them with things that they need. And that'll continue, in perpetuity. We also just launched a job platform just in the last few weeks. It has all the jobs of the accelerator companies. So we're able to promote that and help them to find talent too. But there's a question in the chat that I want to get to, which says, how does a day-to-day look like being a part of the accelerator, and how does the hybrid model work if you're not in the Bay Area? Just quickly on the hybrid model, it's in person the first and last week of the program. And so that's, 5 days on either side, where you're expected to be in Menlo Park and participating in basically a full day of programming, dinners at the end, and all that kind of stuff. We also do a day in Napa where we take all the founders to Napa, to the vineyard where OneMind is based. and have just a really, really great, wine tasting tour around the vineyard, just a good team building day. But yeah, if anybody wants to jump in on what the day-to-day looks like, both during those in-person components, but also the virtual, with the virtual, maybe touch on like the strategy sessions and the founder stories and all that stuff, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. So, as Carmine was saying, the first and last week are in person. They're busy, but they're also fantastic. And I think that being in person is really the way that you get to connect with the other founders, but also with the people that end up becoming your mentors and advisors out of the cohort. So really great. I'm not based in the Bay Area. I'm out in Connecticut, and so the just on the in person, and anyone else can jump in. Like the day to day, there's a pretty set schedule. So there's going to be it could be like a payer panel or a provider panel or a pharma panel or what have you. So something like that everyone is a part of, and then you'll have like a chunk of time that's set for your company, where it could be like a strategy session, or there's time that's allotted where you can kind of like meet with there's someone that works on branding, and so if you need to get some branding work done, you'll meet with her and she'll help you with that. Or there's like someone that they brought in for research, and so kind of depending on what you want, you have time to kind of meet with folks there. Dinners every night. It's a really good combination of what I would call like programming, customized time for what you need, and then really getting to know your cohort and the team really well. And then in the virtual side, so that's kind of the weeks in the middle between the first and the last. And Carmine, I'm sure I'm going to forget some of this, but basically we have 3 different things that come to mind. So once a week, there is essentially what I'm going to call a founder story. So much like what happens in the in-person, this is obviously going to be on Zoom, but there's a founder that comes in and that talks to us every week for like an hour or so. We get to ask questions, and so super impactful stuff there. The second thing is there's strategy sessions. So they split the group up. I don't know if that's the same model that's going to happen going forward, but there's a bunch of companies that are more, I'll call them healthcare service-like companies, and then the other companies that are much more research biotech companies. And so Pushkar takes the second half for strategy sessions. Carmine takes the first half for strategy sessions. And it's literally up to us to bring up a topic that we're working on, that we're grappling with, and we have fellow founders as well as Carmine to help through that. And the third thing was founder breakfasts, virtual founder breakfasts every week. So that's just a place for all of us to kind of keep the relationship going. But jump in if I forgot something.
I might just add that it culminates with a showcase. So if you think about a lot of accelerators, there's often a demo day where you're showing some type of work that you've done to investors or partners. And OneMind, the way they actually do this showcase, it's really on panels. So it's thought leadership, and they invite everyone in the ecosystem to come attend. And people come from near and far to meet the companies that are part of the cohort. And it's an incredibly impactful day. And so also, I think a lot of the OneMind board comes. I don't think Carmine and Pushkar, we've talked a lot about the board and some of the advisors. So I wonder if you two if you're able to share all those names, because I think that's also a big part of the value is, besides all of the founders and the experts, just having an access to these subject matter experts, and also the board, all of whom are very, very supportive of the companies.
Yeah, so our board, the OneMind board, is actually very heavily involved in the program. We have the former president of Goldman Sachs, Harvey Schwartz. There is Garen Staglin, who's the founder of OneMind, who's been in venture capital and private equity for many years. There is Christopher Lyle, who was at Sequoia. So they're all a part of the governing council of the Accelerator. They work very closely with the founder companies. And then we have our larger board, which has folks like Martha Temple from Optum, who was formerly at Optum, or Gary Gottlieb, who's on the East Coast. I think that's the person that Supriya was referring to. So and everybody's in here for the cause, right? And so they're heavily invested. They spend a lot of time coming in, working with the founders, advising us on how we can help the founders. And so they're an integral part of this whole. It's really an all of one mind effort to put this program together.
Thanks, Pushkar. Yeah, a common concern that I hear from founders is, do I have time to do this? Am I too busy for this? Is my company too mature or far along for this? And I'd be curious to hear you guys' responses to that.
I mean, maybe, right? Like if you're literally running like Uber, you might not have time for it, right? But I think most people, unless you literally have got something which is like going at 100 miles an hour and like you're flying, right? You probably could do with, like, there's a lot of benefits to having. I mean, if Uber had a taxi cab, one mind, maybe that would have helped them with some of the regulatory stuff, actually, right? I don't think there's anyone that passionate about taxi cabs. I think it gives you momentum in ways you don't see, right? Like it gives you, it does, there's like a gravitational force supporting you, like emotionally and in all to the kind of the practical ways that it's going to help. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure one mind could help a Series C company, but it's just the level, like as everyone knows, like your risk of kind of extinction goes down as you get older. So it probably makes you more likely to raise your next round, right? But if you're in the middle of the round, then probably you should finish raising it, right? Good question.
So I had two other full-time people in the company when I did One Mind, and both of them were clinicians actually providing care to members. And so I would say it was, and I say this to say, as a company that was pre-seed and pretty early and young, we didn't have anyone to kind of step in and pick up the work that I otherwise would have done. And so coming out of that, I could sit here and go, oh man, like that wasn't worth it. Things dropped, but there's not one part of me that would actually say that. Like, I actually think even despite the fact that, there are some things that didn't get picked up because I wasn't able to focus on it for that week, it was very, 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 very worth it. I mean, like, there's just not even a question in my mind. I will say everyone has to be probably just normally smart about this kind of stuff. You're going to be gone for 5 days. You know that you're going to have to plan for that. So, do all the right things and make sure that people are aware of what needs to happen while you're out. But it's worth it.
Yeah, my quick guess is anybody who signed up for this webinar has time for this, and are probably seeking something. But when you go from like early networks to payers to the state of California, like these are big contacts. So probably everybody can benefit one way or another. But there is, the time commitment that goes into it. But it's not like you're working 8 hours a day every day on this for, months. So, 5-10 hours maybe a week. And, you'll probably be having meetings anyways, and these meetings are probably better. So that would be my read.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to say, I saw a question about what will we have done differently, in coming to the accelerator. And I think that the fact that we're all having this conversation is so important. And as we all know, execution and really planning is very important. And I think if I were going to do it again, we were much better planning after the first week. So once we realized what we were doing after the first week, we were able to really understand the time commitment, and I would have planned better the first week. So all of us that participated would tell you that it meant answering emails from 12 o'clock in the morning, till 3 o'clock. And then that's just part of it. And that's going to happen. And One Mind was terrific too. And they built in breaks in the second section of it. And, really, I think, again, it's that constant communication and making sure that we had time to do calls if we had to do calls. So a lot of accommodation between all of the different things that we needed to do, but absolutely worth it. And to the extent that you can block out the time for the 2 in-person weeks, I would also suggest that founders try to do that because you don't want to miss anything. So, you know, if one of us had to be out for a meeting, another person was sitting in to make sure that we didn't miss it. We completely got so much value out of it that you would want to be in the room, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That's terrific. So somebody asked about the investment piece of it. So we are changing things up a little bit this year. We're not going to do the 100K investment upfront anymore. The reasoning for that is, one, in talking to the founders, they found it to be the least valuable part of the programming in comparison to the connections, the business development, the community building, all of that. 2 is we're creating new mechanisms for funding companies after the program in the form of a fund and potentially other vehicles to really do this in a more strategic way and provide more value just than 100K upfront across the board. And 3, as a nonprofit, this allows us to support more great companies. You know, in the last 2 cohorts, we've been limited to 10 to 11. This will allow us to go, you know, to 12 to 14 or so, but not more than that, because it's still a matter of bandwidth and time to be able to really spend a lot of time with each company. So for that reason, it wouldn't go over that amount. In terms of the additional funding mechanisms, that would all be on a company by company basis, depending on where the company is, the team, all of that stuff. So that's all negotiated in the details when the time comes.
Carmine, can you talk a little bit about the advisory shares for the program?
Yeah, for sure. So what we're going to do upfront this year is take a small advisory share in each company, basically depending on the stage of the company. So again, that will be dependent on where your company is, in line with, you know, the market for advisory shares. Yeah, that's basically that.
And you know,
So what is that? What is that, Carmine? I'm sure everyone's thinking, well, how do you define the market?
Yeah, no, good question, Simon. So the averages out there range from like 0.1 to 0.3, depending on the stage. You know, for a Series A company, probably a little bit less than that. So we're looking at, you know, that range for the companies.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that because I would say OneMind is worth, depending on your company, between a third and half a co-founder of a company, right? But you're not going to argue with them, which is, so it's not going to go wrong. But like an actual person, because like obviously they're not actually like in the weeds every day with you. So I think that's probably quite a reasonable. I mean, you want to do a deal where you get more value than you pay for it. But I think that's how I would price OneMind value, probably about 4/10 of a co-founder with no disagreements. Right, that's kind of nice.
Good deal. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Amazing. Does anybody want to raise a hand and jump in with a question from the audience? We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more. Nobody?
I did want to mention, you know, we are a nonprofit and we are operating this accelerator from a nonprofit space. So the equity is owned by OneMind, the nonprofit, and any financial gains down the line will go right back into the program. So that's kind of like the virtuous cycle that we are hoping to, you know, bring into effect. And so just wanted to put that out there. This is our nonprofit obligation to the mental health ecosystem, is that we keep building this program, keep making it better, and keep delivering more value to the founders, to the companies, and to the whole mental health ecosystem.
I see a direct message about the investment piece. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying. I don't believe that there is a founder that's gone through the program that can't tie investment in their company to OneMind. So I think it's really important that we all say that. So I know this is a little bit different than what was planned, but I think all of us that are here participating would tell you we see this as a huge benefit, this new way of working. And, you know, several of the board members of OneMind have invested in our company. And again, if you had all of us from the last cohort on, you would hear that every single one of us can attribute real dollars of investment directly from OneMind.
And they're the investors I like having as well.
Yeah,
right?
a good
like, no, I can't go to that. Yeah, I think it's worth at least a point. I think that point would be reasonable. you should increase the price. Right. Right.
I
Excellent.
think we are, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Very good. If you retroactively want to give us a point, Simon, you can.
No.
Amazing, guys. So we're going to start wrapping this up. Thank you so much to the founders and to everybody who came out. Yeah, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat here. And then if you guys want to drop your emails as well, no pressure. But if you do, for anyone that wants to follow up with questions, that would be great. We recorded this. We're going to send it out tomorrow morning. Yeah, please just hit me up with any questions that you have, and I'll let you know when the applications come out at the beginning of September.
And if there aren't any questions that were here that we haven't answered, we'll reach out to you directly.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.